There's a currency you probably never use in your daily life, but it decides the price of the gas in your car. A currency printed thousands of miles away that determines whether your food will be more expensive tomorrow. A currency that doesn't belong to your country, yet every central bank on earth treats it like gold. We're talking about the US dollar, and if you think it's just the money Americans use, you're underestimating its real power. Today, more than 60% of the world's foreign reserves are held in dollars, not in euros, not in Chinese yuan, not even in gold, in dollars. When Brazil buys oil from Saudi Arabia, it's in dollars. When Japan sells electronics to Europe, it's in dollars. And when Argentina faces an economic crisis, the dollar soars. But why? Why this currency? Why not many others? The answer isn't just about economics. It's about history, about war, about geopolitics. And it all began over 80 years ago, in a luxury hotel in the mountains of New Hampshire, where the foundations of the modern financial system were set. Before 1944, the world ran on gold. Each currency was backed by how much gold a nation held. It was rigid, limited, and hard to manipulate. If you wanted more money, you needed more gold, and gold doesn't grow on trees. Then came World War II, and with it, an economic collapse like never before. Europe was in ruins. Japan destroyed. The old colonial powers, Britain and France, were broke. And among the ashes, one nation stood untouched, richer and more powerful than ever, the United States. The US had what others didn't: gold, more than half of the world's supply, a victorious army, an industrial economy, and a plan to reshape the world. So, in July 1944, representatives from 44 nations met in that New Hampshire hotel. Their goal? To design a new global financial order, officially to prevent future crises, in reality to decide who would lead the world. That's how the Bretton Woods System was born. Every currency would be pegged to the dollar, and the dollar would be convertible to gold at $35 per ounce. It was genius. The United States became the world's central bank. To trade, rebuild, or survive, countries needed dollars. And to get dollars, they needed to sell to or borrow from the US. America had created a system where the world's prosperity depended on its money, and therefore on its power. But here's the twist. That system doesn't exist anymore. In 1971, President Richard Nixon ended the dollar's link to gold. Bretton Woods collapsed. The dollar became a fiat currency. It held value not because of gold, but because people believed in it. And that brings us to the question that shapes our era. If the gold standard is gone, why does the dollar still rule the world? What keeps it on top? And how long will it last? So the dollar is no longer tied to gold, yet it remains the world's dominant currency. How is that possible? The answer lies in something called network effects. The more people use the dollar, the more useful it becomes. The more useful it becomes, the more people want to use it. It's a self-reinforcing loop, and once it's established, it's nearly impossible to break. In global trade, most transactions are in dollars. Even when two countries trade with each other, say Japan and Brazil, they often use dollars as the middle ground. Why? Because it's convenient, stable, and trusted. This creates a structural dependency. Nations must hold dollar reserves, not because they love the US, but because the system demands it. And here comes one of the most powerful mechanisms of dollar dominance, the petrodollar. In the 1970s, after the end of the gold standard, the US made a crucial deal with Saudi Arabia and other oil producers. All oil sales would be priced and paid in US dollars. Oil is the blood of the global economy. Transportation, industry, agriculture, everything runs on it. So if you need oil, you need dollars. This created a permanent demand for the currency. Every country must accumulate dollars just to keep their energy supply flowing. And the more dollars the world needs, the more powerful the United States becomes. But the dollar's power goes far beyond oil. Global banking operates in dollars. International loans are issued in dollars. The world's safest assets, US Treasury bonds, are denominated in dollars. That gives the US a privilege no one else has, the ability to print the currency the world wants. And that's not just an advantage, it's a weapon. When the US wants to punish a country, it doesn't always need to send soldiers. It can simply cut them off from the dollar system. Iran, Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, all have faced this kind of economic warfare. Without access to dollars, you're cut off from the modern global economy. That's not just financial power, that's geopolitical power. It's the ability to shape nations' behavior without firing a single shot. But this power is now being challenged. China has built its own payment systems. Russia and China are trading in their own currencies. Europe wants to strengthen the euro, and digital currencies are emerging as potential alternatives. Still, these challenges remain small. The dollar accounts for about 60% of global reserves. The euro, around 20%. The yuan, barely 3%. Replacing the dollar isn't about economics alone, it's about trust. And trust takes decades to build. The dollar is strong because the United States is strong. As long as the US remains the dominant global power, the dollar will remain the dominant global currency. But will that always be the case? Are we witnessing the slow decline of the dollar's empire? Or is it just evolving? So can the dollar's empire fall? The short answer, yes. Every empire eventually does. Rome had its denarius, Britain had its pound, and history moves on. But the long answer, it's complicated. Ending the dollar's reign isn't easy. It requires a credible, trusted global alternative, and that takes time. The euro has struggled with internal crises. China's yuan is limited by government control, and cryptocurrencies, while promising, are still too unstable. What's more likely is a gradual erosion, not a collapse. In the year 2000, the dollar made up 70% of global reserves. Today, it's under 60%. The world is becoming multipolar. We may soon see several reserve currencies sharing power, but that transition won't be peaceful. Dollar dominance funds US deficits, sustains its military presence, and reinforces its global influence. Losing that power would reshape US foreign policy entirely. Trade wars, currency conflicts, and diplomatic friction will define this new phase. Countries like Brazil will have to navigate carefully, balancing between old power and new. Because in the end, money is not just economics, it's power. And power is built on trust. The dollar dominates because the US dominates. When that dominance fades, so will the dollar. The current global financial system was born from the ashes of war, crafted in crisis, guided by ambition. The next system will likely emerge the same way, from new conflicts, new rivalries, and new visions of power. So the real question isn't if the dollar's empire will end, but when and what will rise to replace it. Because something always does. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. This kind of story takes time and research to create. If you'd like to keep understanding the invisible forces shaping our world, subscribe and hit the bell icon. And tell me in the comments, do you think the dollar will keep dominating the world? Or are we witnessing the beginning of its decline?